This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or mental health advice. The views and opinions expressed by the host of My Brain is a Wonderland are exactly that, views and opinions. This is Emily Ruth Henderson, and I'm the host of My Brain is a Wonderland, the podcast for neurodivergent women and the people who love them. In 2020, after a hellish pandemic, I was diagnosed with ADHD and autism. Surprise! Now, I am passionate about reaching other women just like me who've been pushed aside, ignored, and misdiagnosed for far too long. Each week, I discuss my experience navigating my 30s with these two life-changing diagnoses. There'll be highs, there'll be lows, and everything in between when you join me for Season 3 of My Brain is a Wonderland. Hello everyone and welcome back. I am so glad you're here with me today when we start our new series called Masking Autism. We just completed our Masking ADHD episodes last week, and so we're going to get into the autism aspects. And because different sources have different information, for the Masking Autism episodes, I'm going to be using symptoms from a website called neurodivergentinsights.com. And it's actually run by a therapist, a psychologist, I believe, who I cannot find their name right now, but it's neurodivergentinsights.com. And she, I believe, is neurodivergent, and she has a neurodivergent child, and she specializes in helping people who are neurodivergent. And her website is actually full of incredible information. And so when I was looking for symptoms of masking autism, I chose her explanation because it was broken down, in my opinion, so well. She basically discusses a 2019 research paper that was completed by Laura Hull and her research team. And they decided to create a camouflaging autistic traits questionnaire. And this was basically an assessment tool that examined autism from an internal perspective. So it asked people with autism, what is your experience with masking and this kind of thing? And what ended up happening is they sent the questionnaire to 354 autistic adults and 478 non-autistic results. Once they got the results, they identified 3 common themes among autistic adults, who mask their autism. And this was really fascinating to me because I always put masking into this one bucket. That was masking is covering up, compensating, mimicking, all that kind of thing, all those things. But this research team actually separates it out into 3 different categories. And the first one is mimicking and copying allistic social norms, parentheses, compensation. So that's called compensation. So when you mimic and copy somebody, you're compensating in that moment. The second one is repressing autistic traits, which is what they say masking, which that was interesting to me, that masking is repression. Not that you're compensating, not that you're trying to do things differently, that you're just literally trying to squash down what those symptoms are. And the third one is performing and pretending, which is assimilation. You're trying to assimilate into your environment by pretending or performing like the people around you. And so I don't know, honestly, how many episodes this is going to be, because each 3 of these categories have maybe 8 different symptoms. So this might turn into 6 episodes, which I think we need to do to really explore this. So this first episode is going to be the compensation symptoms, which is the mimicking and copying social norms. And there are 8 different signs that you are compensating for your autism. And so I'm going to do the first 4 in this episode and then complete the next 4 next week. So again, this is from neurodivergentinsights.com if you want to follow along or read up more about all of these different things. Okay, so the first symptom that you are, they call it a master mimicker, which I have talked about this in the past, that I copy and mimic people constantly, whether it's their accent, their behavior, all of that kind of stuff. So the first symptom is creating scripts to use in social situations, e.g., relying on pre-prepared scripts or rehearsing conversations in advance to ensure smooth interactions. And this is interesting to me because I have always done this. Especially when I was a teenager, teen, kind of getting used to living in the adult world. You know, I've got to call my bank. I've got to call my school, my doctor. I grew up as an only child with a single mom, so a lot of responsibility fell upon me for myself very early. Because, you know, if I'm 12 and I'm trying to book a doctor's appointment, but my mom has to go to work at 6 or 5 a.m. and the office opens at 7 or 8, she would have to go to work and I would have to call them to make my own appointment. It just happened very quickly when I was younger that I took a lot of responsibility for myself and my autonomy. And so I used to create scripts all the time. If I was calling somebody, I would write out the full thing. And when I went into college, I remember being in a college class and someone talking about that, doing the same thing. And I had always assumed it was anxiety, which I think if you have anxiety, you do the same thing. But as a compensation or masking symptom, this is me not wanting to come off as a total goober on the phone, basically. I don't want to get on the phone with my doctor, my hairdresser, my school administrator, and go, "Hi, I'm calling because I need to, did that give you as much anxiety as it did me just now, just pretending to do that? Because that is how it would have been. And so I did used to fully write scripts out saying, "Hi, can I speak to hi, my name is Emily, and I'm calling because blah, 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 blah." And I would talk it through, I would rehearse it, perform it, and then call the person. And I've actually done that a lot less as I've gotten older. I think that's partly confidence, to be honest. I've engaged so much with people on the phone to, you know, call the bank, call the airline, call the doctor, all the things, that I'm really well rehearsed in how to manage situations. That being said, even though I don't write it down, I definitely, before I call a place, am like, okay, I'm going to say this. What am I calling about? Okay, got it. And I need to remember, I got to do this. I got to do that. And for me, I think, yes, that is a symptom of mimicking, of compensating, but also wondering if there's people out there who aren't neurodivergent, but they just have anxiety and they do the same thing because that is anxiety inducing, right? Or is it that more than likely people who are doing this are neurodivergent and they're getting anxiety because they're feeling like they need to compensate on the phone for this kind of, I'm not sure, Like, why is that a problem? Why is that a problem? If I call, I mean, I get it. People want to be efficient, right? I've been in retail. I've been in the service industry. If someone calls and goes, you're kind of like, okay, spit it out, right? So maybe that's where that comes from. You're thinking, well, they just want you to get it together. And you assume that, quote unquote, most people can get it together on the phone. But is that true? I would like to see a person, right? Cold, going into a phone call they've never done before, calling the bank because they had a weird charge, ordering food for the first time, booking a doctor's appointment for the first time. I would be shocked if someone who'd never done it before could just go in cold and be like, what are we doing? I mean, I think maybe there's confident people out there that you call the doctor and you're like, I want to book a doctor's appointment. And they go, when? I don't know. Let me check my calendar. Okay, this is when. Okay, what's your, your insurance number? Oh, I don't know. Let me check. I mean, the fact that you were just so lackadaisical and just saying, I don't know, let me check. I'll do it on the phone. Like that, I feel like I'm getting hives just thinking about it. So if you know people who are like that just are, I'm going to make a phone call without really knowing what's needed. I just know what the purpose is. I want to make an appointment. And then you call the number and they're asking for all this information that you don't have. That literally, I could die just thinking about that. And I guess the masking compensation aspect is that you assume that other people doing this are ready and able and super efficient, unlike what you assume you are not, right? And so I guess it's kind of a fantasy thing. I don't know these people, right? I mean, like I'm saying, tell me if you know these people. My husband isn't that way. He has anxiety making phone calls. I don't think I've ever been around someone or met someone who just on the fly was like, I've never done this phone call before. I'm going to call. Like, am I really compensating for something that is real? That I'm worried that I'm not fitting a social norm? Or is this an assumed social norm? Am I saying, I'm assuming everyone who's neurotypical can call this number, and even if they don't have all of the information, they're very chill about it. And they're like, oh, just hold please, I'll go grab it. Oh, just hold please. Because I hate doing that too. When you're on the phone and they all of a sudden say, I need your account number from wherever. And I'm like, oh, crap, I don't have that. Hold please, I'm so sorry. And they're always like, it's fine, I'm waiting, it's fine. But always have this panic. And so that's an interesting thought, actually. Is this something I'm just assuming and I'm compensating over an assumption? Or is everyone like this? Is everyone like this and I'm just assuming that they're not like this and I have to make all of these overtures and kind of preparations when I really don't, because everyone is dealing with this? Good question, Emily. Don't know the answer. If anyone does, if you have a neurotypical partner, family member who's like, I'm chilling, I'm chill, I called you, I don't know what's happening, help me out. Let me know, because now I'm wondering if it's like kind of an assumption that that we have these social norms that we're assuming everyone is sticking to and we're not. Which, if no one is, then we're good. Just do what you need to do, All right, the second one is, so this is the common symptoms or experiences of master mimickers or people who are compensating. Repeating phrases exactly as others have said them, e.g., mimicking and parroting the exact words and phrases used by others. So I think if you go back to my second episode ever, which, disclaimer, I have a worse microphone, I have a different intro music, it's like my baby podcast, but I talk about how I mimic accents constantly, and it's super embarrassing, and the way people talk, their cadence that they talk, the things that they say, and I worry sometimes that it can come off offensive. And I'm going to be super candid right now because I think I need to be, and I think anyone in this position needs to be. I am a European white woman who has become a citizen of the US. When I am around different cultures, like minorities, if I'm around African Americans who maybe grew up in the South and have a certain accent, I will start to mimic their accent when I talk to them. I will start to mimic their cadence when I talk to them, which, you know, you might say like Eminem or white people who are doing black speak or like think they're something they're not, right? And it's not just with African Americans, it's just one in the US that I'm thinking of. Another might be, I wouldn't fully emulate an accent. It's more kind of a dialect. Like I wouldn't fully emulate a Hispanic accent, right? You're from Mexico, you move to the US, and you're speaking with quite a thick, I'm going to say Mexican accent, because if you know Spanish and Mexican Spanish, they ain't the same. And I will not necessarily be like, start talking like this person who has a very thick Mexican Spanish accent, but I might pick up a little bit of it. I might start using their lexicon, their words that they use to describe things. You know, once I get around certain people, like bro is very common, bruh, like it just comes out. And I, especially around minorities, feel very insecure about that and feel like I hope they don't feel like I'm insulting them and offending them. And sometimes in the middle of talking to them, I will kind of be like, oh my God, what am I saying? You are a white woman from England who is, you know, talking with this kind of dialect and accent that is not your own. And I honestly don't know if people think it's endearing or they don't notice, or if they notice and kind of pretend they don't notice, because no one's ever mentioned it to me before. No one even, you know, their face hasn't been like, wow, I'm offended by the way you're talking to me. But I do it all the time. And if you listen to that second episode that I posted, I used to have an Australian accent as a child. And that was because I used to watch a lot of Australian soap operas. I had at one point an Irish accent, and that's because my school teacher that I was super obsessed with and loved and connected to had an Irish accent and was from Ireland. And so I do it all the time. And it's funny because I feel like maybe it's my brain saying, assimilate, compensate, get in there, you know, mimic people, copy people, say exactly what they're saying. And yet, are you assimilating when you are, you know, a white person or even just a person? I mean, obviously, there's all kinds of races with all types of accents from all different places. But are you really assimilating when it's obvious that's not where you came from, right? I grew up in the UK in London, working class, and my mom trained me early on to not sound working class. It's why I say working class, water, instead of water, sounding what you would call in the UK common. So I was trained not to sound like the place I came from. But is that a problem? Do people notice that? I mean, because I'm white in England, they wouldn't notice that. If I talked like I was middle class, they would assume I was middle class. But if I'm in the US and talking a certain way, what assumptions are made about me? Are they negative assumptions? And is that something I need to be worried about? And that is something I've always been cognizant of and aware of and worried about. And I think, honestly, this is me just speaking from my heart about my experience. I think that and just from what people have said that I work with and know and love, that I come across pretty genuine. Because I say what I feel, my heart is on my sleeve, I don't cover anything up, I am who I am. I do try to cover up, right? But it's so hard to do. Like if I am mimicking, say, an African American accent in front of someone, their accent that they're talking to me and I'm mirroring it back. Generally, it will take me a long time, and not maybe in that first discussion, maybe later, for me to be like, oh my God, am I saying that? Are they okay? No one's ever said anything. No one's ever indicated visually that they have an issue with it. I think really it might just be me being worried about it. But I don't want it to seem like pandering. I don't want it to seem like I am pretending to take on your accent because I want to seem closer to you. It's not what I'm doing. It's just what happens. And you might have heard me say dude a lot on this podcast. I didn't ever say the word dude until I met who was my best friend at the time when I was 17. We worked at Blockbuster Video for a year together, and he said dude all the time. I took that on, and ever since then, it's just been in my lexicon, and it's what I do. I'll just take on phrases from people that I know that I never would have said before and just start incorporating it into what I say. And so, yeah, I do that absolutely all the time, and I guess it is a compensating thing. I don't even realize I'm doing it, though. I mean, I don't know if I would even class it into something that you know you're doing or even acknowledge. Maybe it's just a symptom of neurodivergency that you kind of mimic people. And I don't know if that's really a compensation thing or just a thing we do as people with neurodivergency or people who are neurodivergent. But yeah, do it all the time. Love it, hate it, blah. All right, the third one is, this is a common experience or symptom of master mimickers using behaviors learned from watching other interactions, e.g., frequently observing and adopting behaviors from others to fit in socially. So, okay, I'm trying to think if I'm sure almost positively sure that I do that, but I'm trying to think of an example here. So, I don't know. I guess, okay, here's one that just came off the top of my head. I hate to hug people. If I don't know you, I ain't hugging you. And these people who, when you first meet them, go, I'm a hugger. Well, I'm not. Thanks for asking. Please don't invade my personal space. But in that moment, I will mirror the social niceties that are happening. So if I show up, I'm a handshaker. I'm a handshaker, a waver, like a bower. I get that from the British monarchy. I was like, oh, they do the hands together praying, bowing, because they're not supposed to shake hands. Love that. But I show up to places and then kind of see, okay, what is everyone else doing? Is everyone giving this person a hug? If nobody says, hey, I shake hands or extend my hand, then I'm not going to be the outlier that does that. I'm just going to fit in and hug you, even though I don't want to touch you. I don't want to smell you. I don't want you close to me. I don't know why we're hugging when we just met. I mean, does that seem crazy, guys? I don't think that's even a neurodivergent thing, because there are, human beings who don't I don't know you. We're not hugging. Don't touch me. This is why the handshake was created a million millennia, blah, blah, blah ago. Just shake my hand. The worst is when you extend the hand and they're like, I'm a hugger. I was like, wow, okay. What's really annoying is a lot of these people cite themselves as liberal, as compassionate, all this stuff. And I'm liberal, democratic, non-religious, anti-monarchical. I am, liberal as F. But, it's not okay to just roll over someone's consent. For someone to offer their handshaking, and then you go, well, I'm a hugger. Okay, I'm sorry, you need my essence? Are you trying to steal it? Are you a warlock who needs my inner essence? You're not getting a hug. Sorry, that's my charmed coming out there. You're not getting a hug. I'm shaking your hand. Frickin' take the handshake. It's actually offensive when these people say, oh, I'm so compassionate and liberal and like on your side, but I'm going to mow down all of your consent that you've already expressed to me and completely ignore it. And yeah, cool, whatever. So it's super frustrating, but I will do that. If everyone is hugging, I hate to be that one, right? That one who's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to. No, thank you. And people will talk about you. Here, I'm going to talk about a story right now where I was like, ooh, what an asshole. I was a professional dancer and I worked in a dance studio. And one of the students brought a potential new student, right? Like you bring a friend to the studio and we're going to try to get you into dancing or whatever. And she came over with her friend and was like, this is whoever. And I said, oh my gosh, so nice to meet you, and extended my hand to give a handshake. And this woman said, I don't shake hands. It's like, okay. And then she said, I'm a professional piano player, and I've had people squeeze my hand too hard, which I get that. People do go crazy on handshakes sometimes. And so that's like her instrument, right? She doesn't want to risk people like breaking her hand off. But it came off very stark, right? When she said, I don't shake hands. It was like, wow, okay. You don't even shake hands. Okay. And I completely respected her, but then afterwards told my husband, she's freaking weird. Like, that's weird. Spoke with her friend, quote unquote, like acquaintance. They weren't really friends. Especially after that, the woman was like, she's not really my friend. You know, we kind of, to be honest, and this is me, guys, I'm candid here all day, every day. We made fun of her a little bit. We did kind of say like, wow, okay, whatever. And this was before I was diagnosed and all the things, and I don't think I would do that now. But that is what I thought. I just thought, okay, outlier, that's weird. Just shake her hand, dude. That's weird. And so I have that in my own brain. Like, don't be weird. Don't be against the grain. Don't be against the collective human experience and do what everyone else is doing. Is that a neurodivergent thing? Maybe not. I think everyone as a human does that. I think, in fact, even if you're neurodivergent or autistic especially, you might be more likely to say, no, thank you. Nope, I don't want to. No, you're not going to shake my hand. Nope, I'm not going to hug you. So maybe that's just a human thing, because I think most humans, you know, just kind of assimilate, compensate, and just say, I'll do it. Everyone else is doing it. Whatever. Okay, and the fourth one is practicing facial expressions and body language, e.g., regularly rehearsing and perfecting facial expressions, gestures, and body language to match those of allistic people. Am I saying that right? Allistic, allistic, allyistic. Sorry, I'm not sure. Okay, I have actually a perfect example of this. I couldn't think of any others, but it just blew into my brain. Smiling for a camera, okay? So when I was a child and I would have my school photos done, I would do these very shy smiles with my lips pursed together, no teeth showing, very, just like, this is me. And people didn't like that. By people, I say my mom. My mom didn't like that. I didn't look happy. I didn't look normal. I just looked kind of pensive and shy and scared, and she didn't like that. The other thing is that I know there are so many people listening to this podcast that have taken photos on camera where you're like, oh my God, what is that face? What is that smile? What is happening? And I actually, in my, I would say early to mid-20s, started practicing my smile. Not my genuine smile, my photo smile. So if people say smile, you honestly sometimes come off like an absolute psychopath. Because here's why. If you smile when you don't mean it, here's what happens. And you can divide your face in half. And your lower half of your face has your upturned mouth, right? And you've got the smile. If you look at your upper face with the eyes, your eyes aren't squeezed in the corner like you're actually smiling. You look dead inside. This was in a How I Met Your Mother episode. talking about, is it Sandy? Oh my gosh, the older husband of Ted's romantic interest. And they literally divide his face in a photo and say he's psycho because he's smiling in the bottom half, but his eyes are dead in the top. You don't know how many photos I have of myself like that. And so I started to practice actually smiling and looking normal, looking like I'm enjoying where I'm at instead of like, I have a gun to my back. And that is something now I can turn on. I can literally just be like, boom, turn to the side, eyes forward, smile, done. If you ask me to hold it, you'll get and they're like, hold it. It starts to get like, I look crazy. But generally, I can do it. I'm going to talk about my husband right now. We have discussed possibilities that he's neurodivergent, but he super struggles with this. Anyone who has watched Friends, I'm obsessed with it. It's my Friends Fixation podcast once a month. There is an episode where Monica and Chandler are taking their wedding photos for like the New York Times. And Chandler's face is like the emoji that is like all your teeth are showing, but you're not smiling. You're like, ugh. And he looks like that all the time. That is how my husband used to look all the time in photos. Looks less now like that in photos. But if he does, sometimes when I take a photo of him, like I'm taking a photo of you in front of a sunset for your mom, and I'm like, I have to make him laugh. I have to literally get a genuine laugh out of him to get him to look normal. And that might be a neurodivergent thing on my husband's side. We're not sure. But it's really common, I think, that you're not trained from birth to take a photo. Though, disclaimer, I'm a millennial. Gen Z, maybe. I don't know how many photos I take of my nieces and nephews who are babies. That maybe they are going to learn more how to photograph, how to smile for a photograph. But that is something I really had to work on, so I didn't look like I was dead inside with like this crazy, like it smile on my face. I mean, honestly, that's the really only thing I can think of that I have mimicked, I guess, or practiced facial expressions and body language. I don't think I've really practiced body language, but in terms of facial expressions, I definitely practiced my smile, constantly so that I can be photographed correctly and not look to me, which would seem like off, And that is a mimicking thing. I have looked at celebrities, turn to the side, chin down, eyes up, smile. Like, I've done that. I did that when I was in college. I did it a lot. And I end up looking normal and pretty in all of my photographs now. But I wish I didn't have to do that, I wish I could just be photographed. But photographs are aesthetic. You want the person to look like they're enjoying being photographed where they are, not looking like they're being held captive. So that's just what that is. So that's the first 4 symptoms of being a master mimicker or compensating when you have autism. Next week, I'm going to do the final 4 symptoms of that, and then we will move on to the actual masking symptoms, which are repressing autistic traits. And then we'll do assimilating symptoms, which is performing and pretending. So stay tuned for all of that. And I just want to say I did get 3 more reviews, a couple on Spotify, 1 on Apple. Thank you so much. Keep pushing. Keep putting those 5-star reviews on everything you love, even if it isn't me. And I will see you next week for another episode of My Brain is a Wonderland, Season 3.